The U.S. Meridian disappeared 312 years ago. It was a colony ship, built to carry humans across the stars to find new worlds. 2,400 people were on board when it flew into the Kepler Veil and never came out. The Kepler Veil was a place no one visited. It was a region of space where sensors stopped working, where ships lost their way, where nothing made sense. The four great empires that ruled the galaxy had marked it on every map with the same warning: stay away. The humans did not listen. They were young and curious and desperate for new homes. So they sent the Meridian to explore the edges of the veil. The ship sent back 3 messages. Then silence. The humans waited for years. They sent search parties. They found nothing. Eventually, they held funerals for the lost and tried to forget. 3 centuries passed. The galaxy moved on. Commander Thylex of the Ascendancy Border Patrol was having a boring night. His species, the Velcor, had controlled this sector of space for 8,000 years. Nothing interesting ever happened here. His job was to watch screens and drink bitter tea and wait for his shift to end. Then his sensor officer made a strange sound. It was not quite a word. It was the sound someone makes when they see something impossible. "Commander," the officer said, "there is a ship coming out of fold space." "So?" "Ships travel through fold space all the time. This ship is broadcasting a human transponder code." Thylex set down his tea. "Which code?" The officer checked twice before answering. "The U.S. Meridian, sir." For a moment, Thylex did not move. Then he stood and walked to the main viewing window. His crew gathered behind him. They watched the empty space ahead and waited. The fold space exit point began to glow. Reality bent and twisted like fabric being pulled. Then the ship emerged. It was old. The design was ancient, a relic from humanity's early days of space travel. But the hull was perfect. No scratches, no damage, no signs of the 3 centuries it had been missing. And there was something else. The surface of the ship was covered in patterns. They were geometric shapes that seemed to shift and move when Thylex looked at them directly. His navigator let out a cry and covered her eyes. Tears ran down her face. "Don't look at the patterns," she whispered. "They hurt. They mean something I cannot understand." Thylex forced himself to look away. His hearts were beating too fast. This was wrong. Everything about this was wrong. The communication system crackled. A calm human voice filled the bridge. "This is Captain Elias Vance of the U.S. Meridian. We request permission to dock at Nexus Station. We are returning home." Thylex did not answer immediately. He was trying to understand what he was seeing. The ship's energy readings made no sense. The power output was higher than a battleship, higher than a space station, higher than anything he had ever recorded. But there were no weapons visible, no shields. Just that old colonial vessel covered in impossible patterns. "Meridian," Thylex finally said. "You disappeared 312 years ago." "Yes," the voice replied. "We are sorry we are late." Thylex sent an emergency message to the Ascendancy High Command. Within the hour, 3 more Ascendancy warships arrived. Within 3 hours, ships from the other great empires began appearing. The Keleth Communion sent their fastest science vessels. The Vreth Dominion sent battle cruisers bristling with weapons. The Thal Confederacy sent merchant princes who smelled profit in mystery. And the humans sent Ambassador Yuen Shaoli. Yuen was 60 years old, experienced and patient. She had spent her career navigating the complicated politics between humanity and the older species. The empires tolerated humans. They found them useful for simple work and occasionally clever, but they did not respect them. Humanity was young, only 400 years in space. The empires had ruled for millennia. Yuen watched the Meridian through her shuttle window as she approached Nexus Station. The station was the largest trading hub in the galaxy, a place where all species could meet on neutral ground. It hung in space like a metal flower, its docking arms extending in all directions. The Meridian looked tiny next to it. But somehow, Yuan thought, the old ship seemed more real, more solid, as if it was the station that might blow away in a strong wind. She was there when the airlock opened. A crowd had gathered. Representatives from all four empires, scientists, soldiers, merchants, reporters. They all pushed forward to see who would emerge from the ghost ship. A woman stepped out first. She was young, maybe 30 years old, with dark hair and calm eyes. She wore a uniform that had not been used for 3 centuries. The fabric should have rotted long ago. Instead, it looked new. Behind her came others. Men and women, some old and some young. Children held their parents' hands. They all walked with the same quiet confidence, the same patient expressions. The young woman looked at the crowd. She smiled. It was a warm smile, but there was something behind it. Something vast and old and knowing. "Hello," she said. "We are sorry we are late. We brought gifts." No one spoke. No one knew what to say. The Vreth commander pushed forward. He was large, covered in scales, built for war. "You will explain yourselves," he demanded. "Where have you been? What happened to your ship? What are those patterns on your hull?" The woman looked at him. Her smile did not change. "We went somewhere else," she said. "We learned things. And now we have come back to share them." "Share what?" "Everything you need. Nothing you want." The Vreth commander did not understand. None of them did. Yuan watched the exchange and felt something she had not felt in many years. Fear. Not fear of the passengers. Fear of what their return might mean. Because the galaxy had rules. The strong ruled the weak. The old guided the young. Humanity was at the bottom of every list that mattered. But these humans did not act like they were at the bottom of anything. They acted like they knew a secret. Like they had seen the ending of a story everyone else was still reading. Captain Elias Vance stepped forward. He was an ordinary-looking man, middle-aged, with kind eyes and gray at his temples. He looked like someone's father, someone's neighbor. Completely unremarkable. But when he spoke, even the Vreth commander took a step back. "We have traveled very far," Vance said, "and we are tired. Let us rest tonight. Tomorrow we will answer your questions. All of them." He turned and walked back into the ship. The passengers followed. The airlock closed. The crowd stood in silence. 4 great empires, rulers of the galaxy, conquerors of countless worlds. And they had just been dismissed by a man who looked like he should be teaching school. Yuan stayed long after the others left. She stared at the closed airlock and wondered what waited behind it. Tomorrow, she thought. Tomorrow everything changes. She was more right than she knew. The next morning, the empires sent their inspectors. They came with scanners and recording devices and suspicious eyes. The Ascendancy sent military engineers. The Keleth Communion sent their best scientists. The Vreth Dominion sent soldiers disguised as observers. The Thal Confederacy sent accountants who wanted to count everything valuable. Captain Vance met them at the airlock. He smiled and stepped aside. "Welcome to the Meridian," he said. "Look at whatever you wish. We have nothing to hide." This made the inspectors nervous. Guilty people made excuses. Guilty people asked for lawyers and limits. Innocent people with nothing to hide were rare. Innocent people with technology that scared empires were unheard of. The first team entered the ship. They walked down a corridor that should have been 30 meters long. After 5 minutes of walking, they were still in the corridor. It stretched ahead of them, endless and impossible. One engineer turned around to go back. The airlock was only 10 steps behind him. It had not moved. The ship adjusts to need, a passenger explained. She was a small woman with white hair and young eyes. If you need to go somewhere, the path will take you. If you are lost, you will stay lost until you decide where you truly want to be. The engineer asked how this was possible. The woman thought about the question. The ship learned to fold space inside itself. Distance is just an idea. Ideas can change. The engineer wrote this down. His hand was shaking. The science team from the Keleth communion went to find the engine room. The Keleth were the smartest species in the galaxy. They had mapped stars and built wonders. They were very proud of their understanding of physics. They found the reactor core. None of them could describe what they saw later. One scientist said it looked like a star that had forgotten how to burn. Another said it looked like mathematics given form. A third said it looked like an eye. All of them agreed on one thing. It looked back at them. The lead scientist, a Caliph named Torvin, had studied physics for 200 years. He had written books that changed how people understood reality. When he came out of the reactor room, he sat down on the floor and refused to move. "It is not a machine," he said quietly. "It is not a reactor. It is a probability engine. It does not generate power. It generates possibility. It makes things true that should not be true." He requested immediate psychiatric leave. His request was granted. The medical teams examined the passengers. There were 2,400 of them, exactly the same number that had left Earth 3 centuries ago. This was impossible. People die. People have children. Numbers change. But the passengers explained that they had died and had children. The number simply stayed the same because that was the number that was needed. The doctors did not understand. "We exist in balance," Captain Vance said. "When one of us dies, another is born. When one of us is born, sometimes one dies. The ship knows what we need to be whole." The medical scans showed more impossible things. The passengers had human DNA, human blood, human organs. But their cells repaired themselves in real time. Injuries healed before doctors could finish recording them. Diseases could not survive in their bodies. They were human, but they were also something more. One doctor asked a passenger how old she was. "I was born on the ship," the woman said. "I am 240 years old." She looked 30. The Vreth soldiers spread through the ship searching for weapons. They found none. No guns, no missiles, no defensive systems of any kind. This made them more afraid, not less. "How do you protect yourselves?" A Vreth officer demanded. "You have been in deep space for 3 centuries. You must have encountered threats." A young man from the crew considered the question. "Threats do not approach us. The ship does not allow it. Does not allow it how? Things that wish us harm. Forget that they wish us harm. Or they forget that we exist. Or they forget how to harm. The ship has many ways of keeping us safe." The officer felt a chill run down his spine. He was a warrior. He had killed enemies and conquered worlds. But he did not want to be near this ship anymore. Outside the Meridian, the Ascendancy cruiser Dominant Will was running routine scans. Its captain was bored and annoyed by all the caution. He ordered his weapons officer to power up the targeting systems, just to see what readings they would get. Just to be thorough. The moment the targeting systems came online, every electrical system on the Dominant Will died. Lights went dark. Engines stopped. Life support flickered. 3,000 crew members floated in sudden darkness, screaming in confusion. Emergency power came on 30 seconds later. By then, panic had spread through the entire ship. The captain demanded to know what had happened. His engineers had no explanation. There had been no attack, no signal, no pulse of energy. Everything had simply stopped working, and once Captain Vance's voice came over the emergency channel. "I apologize for the inconvenience," he said. His tone was gentle, almost sad. "The Meridian is protective of us. She does not like weapons pointed in her direction. Please do not frighten her again." The Ascendancy captain did not respond. His hands were trembling too badly to press the communication button. Ambassador Yuan heard about all of these events. She collected reports from every inspection team. She read about impossible corridors and probability engines and passengers who did not age. She read about the weapons system failure and the captain's gentle apology. Then she went to see Captain Vance herself. She found him in what looked like a garden. Trees grew inside the ship, tall and healthy, their roots somehow finding soil where metal should have been. Birds sang in branches that should not exist. "Ambassador," Vance said. He was sitting on a bench, watching children play among the trees. "Thank you for coming. You know why I am here." "Yes, the Empires are afraid. They want to take the ship. They are discussing it right now, in secret, where they think no one can hear." Yuan felt her heart skip. "You know about their meeting?" Vance smiled. "We know many things. Distance is just an idea. Secrets are just distance between minds. Then you know they will demand you give up the Meridian. Yes, and you know they might use force. They might try." Yuan sat down beside him. She watched the children playing. They looked like any children, laughing and chasing each other. But sometimes they ran in directions that should not exist, disappearing around corners that led nowhere and everywhere. "What do you want?" she asked. "Why did you come back?" Vance was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was heavy with something that might have been sorrow. "We came back because we learned something important. Something the Empires need to hear. But they will not listen to us willingly. They will have to be shown." "Shown what?" Vance looked at her. His eyes were kind but ancient. He had lived one lifetime, but he had seen things that made lifetimes feel small. "Themselves," he said. "We came back to show them themselves." Yuan did not understand, but she would. Soon, everyone would. Deep inside Nexus Station, in a room that did not appear on any map, the four empires gathered. This had not happened in 600 years. The last time, they had met to divide the galaxy among themselves. They had drawn borders and made rules and agreed to compete without destroying each other. It had kept the peace, more or less. Now they gathered again because of a single ship. A single human ship that should have been dust centuries ago. The Ascendancy Primus spoke first. He was old for a Velcor, his scales faded to silver, his eyes sharp with 800 years of politics. "We all know why we are here. The Meridian carries technology that could change the balance of power in the galaxy." The HFY scientist nodded. Her species looked like tall insects, elegant and cold. "Our inspectors confirm this. The ship operates on principles we do not understand. It may take centuries to decode. Centuries we do not have," the Vreth Dominar growled. He was massive, built for war, covered in scars from 100 battles. If the humans control this technology, they become a threat. They must surrender it. The Thal merchant prince raised a delicate hand. His species were small and quick, traders who had grown rich by selling to everyone. "Perhaps we should discuss purchasing rights. Humans are reasonable. They understand profit." "Profit?" The Vreth Dominar slammed his fist on the table. "We do not buy what we can take. Humanity is a minor species. They exist because we allow them to exist. They will give us the ship, or they will suffer." The Ascendancy Primus held up a hand for calm. "Let us not be hasty. The humans have changed. The passengers are not normal. They are something new. We do not know what they can do. Then we learn," the Dominar said. "We take the ship." We study it. We keep what is useful. This is how the galaxy has always worked. No one disagreed. This was indeed how the galaxy had always worked. The strong took from the weak. The old taught the young their place. It was natural. It was right. They decided to summon the human ambassador. Yuan entered the secret room knowing that she was walking into danger. She had dealt with empires her whole life. She knew how they thought. They saw humanity as useful, but inferior. A servant species. A source of labor and occasional cleverness. She also knew that everything had changed. She had spoken with Captain Vance. She had seen the garden inside his ship. She had watched children play in spaces that should not exist. The humans were not inferior anymore. The empires just did not know it yet. The Ascendancy Primus wasted no time. Ambassador Yuan, your government will surrender the Meridian and all passengers to joint empire custody. This is not a request. Yuan let the silence stretch. She had learned long ago that powerful beings hated silence. It made them uncertain. May I ask why? She finally said, "The ship carries dangerous technology. It must be studied by those capable of understanding it. The passengers seem to understand it well enough." The Primus frowned. Humans cannot be trusted with such power. You are too young, too unstable, too human. Yuan nodded slowly. I see. And if we refuse? The Vreth Dominar leaned forward. His breath smelled like copper and meat. Then we will take it. We will blockade your colonies. We will destroy your fleet. We will remind you what happens to species that forget their place. Yuan looked at him. She was a small woman, old and tired, facing a creature that could kill her with one hand. But she did not look away. Have you asked the passengers what they want? She said. The room fell silent. The passengers? The HFY scientist seemed confused. What do the passengers have to do with this? They are cargo, survivors. They will do what they are told. Will they? Yuan tilted her head. 300 years in the Kepler Vale. 300 years in a place that drives others mad. They survived. They came back. And you think they will simply do what they are told? The Dominar growled. They are human. Humans always obey in the end. Perhaps, Yuan said. Or perhaps they stop being the kind of humans who obey. Have you considered that possibility? Have you wondered why they came back at all? No one answered. Yuan stood. I cannot make this decision for humanity. But I suggest you speak with Captain Vance before you make threats. Ask him why he returned. Ask him what he learned. And ask him what happens if you try to take his ship by force. She walked to the door, then paused. You have ruled the galaxy for thousands of years, she said. You have conquered and controlled and commanded. But the Meridian went somewhere you cannot go. They learned things you do not know. And they chose to come back. She met the Primus's eyes. Perhaps you should wonder why that frightens you so much. She left. The Empire sat in silence. Then the Dominar laughed. It was a harsh sound, full of contempt. Human arrogance, he said. They find one strange ship and think they are our equals. I will show them the truth. He stood and marched out. His fleet commanders received orders within the hour. 40 Vreth warships would surround Nexus Station. If the Meridian did not surrender peacefully, it would be taken by force. The other empires did not stop him. Some secretly hoped he would succeed. Others secretly hoped he would fail, weakening the Vreth and leaving the technology for them to claim. None of them thought about what Yuan had said. None of them wondered why the passengers had come back. None of them asked the obvious question that if the Meridian could disable an Ascendancy cruiser without firing a shot, what could it do to a fleet? Captain Vance knew the warships were coming. He sat in his garden and watched the stars through a window that should not exist. The children had stopped playing. The passengers had gathered, quiet and patient, waiting for what came next. Ambassador Ewan found him there. "They are sending warships," she said. 40 of them. "The Vreth mean to take you by force." Vance nodded. "Yes, we know. What will you do?" He looked at her. His eyes were sad. "We hoped it would not come to this. We hoped they would ask us questions instead of making demands. We hoped they had changed in the centuries we were gone. They have not changed. No, they have not." Vance stood. "So we will have to show them what we learned. We did not want to. The truth is heavy. It hurts. But sometimes pain is the only teacher that works." "What truth? What did you learn out there?" Vance took her hand. His touch was warm, human, ordinary. But beneath it, she felt something vast. Something that had looked into the void and found something looking back. "We learned why the empires are dying," he said. "We learned what waits at the end of all their conquering and controlling. And we learned that there is another way. A better way. But first, they have to see themselves clearly. They have to understand what they have become." "How will you show them?" Vance smiled. It was the saddest smile Yuan had ever seen. "We will open the door," he said, "and let the light in." The warships were hours away. The galaxy held its breath. And on the meridian, the passengers began to sing. It was a strange song, ancient and new at the same time. It was a song about endings and beginnings, about mirrors and truths, about what happens when you finally see yourself clearly. Yuan listened, and for the first time, she began to understand. The council chamber was full when Captain Vance arrived. Representatives from all 4 empires sat in their sections, surrounded by guards and advisors. The Vreth Dominar had returned, satisfied that his fleet was on its way. He sat with his arms crossed, waiting to watch the human beg for mercy. But Vance did not beg. He walked to the center of the chamber and stood there calmly. Behind him, hundreds of Meridian passengers filed in. They filled the back of the room, silent and still, their eyes ancient and patient. The Ascendancy Primus spoke first. "You requested this meeting, Captain. We are listening, but understand that the Vreth fleet will arrive within hours. You would be wise to cooperate." Vance nodded. "I understand, and I thank you for listening. It is more than I expected." "Then speak. Explain yourself. Tell us where you have been and what you found." Vance looked around the room. He looked at the Primus with his 800 years of power. He looked at the Kelith scientists who had mapped the stars. He looked at the Vreth Dominar who had conquered worlds. He looked at the Thal merchants who had grown rich on the work of others. Then he began to speak. 312 years ago, we flew into the Kepler Vale. We did not know what it was. We thought it was just empty space, strange and unknown. We were wrong. He paused, gathering his words. The veil is not empty. It is a wound in reality, a place where the rules break down, where space and time become uncertain. Our ship fell through. We expected to die. Instead, we found ourselves somewhere else, somewhere between places, somewhere deep. The Kelith scientist leaned forward. Between places? What does this mean? Imagine the universe as a vast ocean, Vance said. Everything you know, every star and planet and empire, exists on the surface. Waves and currents, ships sailing from place to place. That is normal reality. But beneath the surface, there is depth. The deeper you go, the darker it becomes. The stranger. And at the very bottom, there is something that is not darkness. It is awareness. The room was silent. No one moved. We called it the deep. It is not a god. It does not think the way we think. It is more like a current. an awareness that flows beneath everything. It is very old, older than stars, older than galaxies. It has been there since the beginning, watching, waiting, dreaming. The Vreth Dominar snorted. Fairy tales? You expect us to believe you met some ancient god at the bottom of the universe? I expect nothing, Vance said. I am only telling you what happened. Whether you believe it is your choice, he continued. The deep found us. It studied us. We were small and frightened and alone. We should have gone mad. Many of us almost did. But we did something that surprised it. We studied it back. The Primus frowned. You studied it? How? By listening. By watching. By refusing to give up. Vance's voice grew soft. That is what humans do, you see. When everything seems impossible, we keep trying. When the universe shows us something we cannot understand, we ask questions. When we are afraid, we reach out anyway. It is our greatest weakness. It is also our greatest strength. He walked slowly around the chamber, looking at each delegation in turn. We spent 300 years in that place. Time moved differently there. Generations were born and died. We raised children who had never seen a real star. We buried parents who remembered Earth. And slowly, very slowly, we began to understand. Understand what? The Kella scientist asked. Everything. Vance stopped walking. The deep showed us things. The birth of galaxies. The death of universes. The patterns that connect all living things. And most importantly, it showed us ourselves. It showed us what we were, what we could become, and what would happen if we chose the wrong path. He turned to face the full council. Do you know what we saw when we looked at ourselves? We saw fear. Fear of death. Fear of being forgotten. Fear of being small in a universe too large to comprehend. And we saw how that fear had shaped us. How it had driven us to conquer and control and consume. How it had made us believe that the only way to survive was to be stronger than everyone else. The Dominar's eyes narrowed. Strength is not fear. Strength is power. Power is survival, is it? Vance looked at him with something like pity. Your empire has existed for 12,000 years. In that time, you have fought 400 major wars. You have conquered 3,000 worlds. You have killed billions of beings. And are you safe? Are you secure? Or are you still afraid, every day, that someone stronger will come and take everything from you? The Dominar said nothing. His jaw was tight. Vance spoke to all of them now, his voice gentle but firm. We watched your empires from the deep. We saw your histories unfolding. Your wars repeating. Your growth stalling. You have reached the limits of what conquest can achieve. You have mastered your technologies and built your walls and crushed your enemies, and still you are not satisfied. Still you are afraid. Still you reach for more. He shook his head. You are dying. All of you. Not quickly. Not dramatically. But slowly from the inside. Your empires are rotting because they are built on fear, and fear eats everything eventually. The Thal merchant prince spoke up. This is philosophy, not fact. What does any of this have to do with your ship? Your technology? Vance nodded. A fair question. The technology is simple to explain. The deep taught us to work with reality instead of against it. Your ships fight the universe, forcing your way through space with brute power. Ours flows with it. Your weapons destroy, creating damage that must be repaired. Our ship simply redirects, changes probability, convinces the universe that harm is unnecessary. That is impossible, the Kella scientist said. But her voice was uncertain. Only because you believe it is. That is what the deep taught us. Limits are ideas. Ideas can change. but only if you are willing to let go of your fear. He stood in the center of the chamber, surrounded by beings who had ruled the galaxy for thousands of years. We did not come back to conquer you. We did not come back to sell our technology or share our secrets. We came back to offer you a choice, a different path, a way forward that does not require endless war and endless fear. And if we refuse? The Primus asked quietly. Vance was silent for a moment. When he spoke, his voice was heavy with sorrow. Then you will continue as you are. And in 1,000 years, or 10,000, your empires will collapse. Your species will fade. And the deep will watch, as it has watched countless others who made the same choice. He looked at the Vreth Dominar. Your fleet is almost here. You can attack us if you wish. We will not fight back. We will not need to. You will simply see what you have become. And after that, the choice will be yours. The Dominar laughed. It was a harsh, angry sound. Pretty words from a man with no weapons. We will see how wise you are when my ships tear your precious meridian apart. He stood and walked out. His officers followed. Vance watched him go. Then he turned to the others. Thank you for listening. Soon, you will see for yourselves. I hope you choose well. He walked back to his passengers. They closed around him like family, like one organism with many bodies. Together, they returned to their ship. The council sat in silence. The fleet drew closer. And somewhere in the deep, something ancient watched and waited to see what would happen next. 40 Vreth warships surrounded Nexus Station like wolves around a wounded deer. They were massive vessels, bristling with weapons, carrying enough firepower to destroy planets. The Dominar had sent his best. This would be a lesson that the galaxy would never forget. The meridian drifted at the center of their formation. It looked tiny, helpless. Its ancient hull glinted with those strange patterns. But it had no shields, no weapons, nothing that should be able to stop what was coming. On the bridge of his flagship, the Dominar watched with satisfaction. The other empires had sent observers. They wanted to see what would happen. Some hoped the Vreth would succeed and share the technology. Others hoped they would fail and look foolish. None of them tried to stop the attack. Only Ambassador Ewan had boarded the Meridian. She stood beside Captain Vance on the bridge, watching the warships through windows that showed space in ways no window should. They are charging weapons, she said. Vance nodded. Yes, they will fire soon. And then? He looked at her with those ancient, patient eyes. And then they will see. Outside, the Dominar gave the order. All ships, fire. 40 warships unleashed their weapons at once. Plasma beams, missile volleys, kinetic rounds moving at half the speed of light. Enough destruction to crack a moon. The barrage struck the Meridian. Or rather, it tried to. The weapons simply stopped, not deflected, not absorbed. They reached the space around the ship and ceased to exist. Energy became nothing. Matter faded like fog in sunlight. The Dominar watched in disbelief. Fire again. They fired again. And again. And again. Each barrage vanished before it could touch the Meridian. The ship did not move. It did not respond. It simply existed, untouchable, impossible. What is happening? The Dominar screamed. Why can we not hit them? His weapons officer was pale. Sir, our targeting systems are working. Our weapons are firing. But the ship is not there. I mean, it is there, but it is also not there. The readings make no sense. On the Meridian, Vance sighed. He had hoped it would not come to this. But the Vreth had made their choice. Now they would face the consequences. Open the ship, he said quietly. The passengers closed their eyes. They began to sing again, that strange ancient song, and the Meridian responded. The hull did not open physically. Instead, it became transparent. Not to light, but to something deeper. Something that lived in the space between thoughts, and the light came out. Every being on every ship saw it. It was not blinding. It was not painful. It was simply deep, like looking into an ocean that had no bottom, like staring into a mirror that showed more than your face. The Dominar saw his empire. He saw 12,000 years of war. Every battle, every death, every conquest. He saw them not as victories, but as repetitions. The same fear driving the same violence, producing the same temporary peace. Over and over and over. He saw himself, not as a great warrior, but as a frightened child building walls higher and higher, knowing they would never be high enough. On another ship, an admiral saw her species' history. She saw the worlds they had taken, the peoples they had crushed, the futures they had ended. She saw a trail of destruction that led nowhere. At the end of it was only silence and dust. On another, a young soldier saw his own future. A life of fighting. A death in some battle he would not remember. His children, if he had any, doing the same. And their children. Forever. Until there was nothing left. They all saw themselves. Truly. Without comfort. Or illusion. The light faded. The meridian sealed dot in the silence that followed. No one fired. No one spoke. The weapons stayed charged but unused. The crews floated at their stations, tears on their faces, unable to move. Captain Vance's voice came over every communication channel. It was soft, gentle, the voice of someone who had been where they were and found a way through. "We are not your enemies," he said. "We are not your saviors. We are just the ones who came back to tell you what we learned. The fear you feel, the emptiness you saw, that is not who you are. That is who you have chosen to be. And you can choose again." The Dominar sat alone on his bridge. His officers had left. Some were weeping in corners. Others had simply stopped responding. He sat in his command chair and stared at nothing. All his life, he had believed that strength meant power, that survival meant domination, that the universe respected only those who could take what they wanted. Now, he saw the truth. He had been running his whole life. Running from fear. Running from death. Running from the knowledge that nothing he built would last. And in his running, he had become the very thing he feared. Empty. Temporary. Alone. His hand moved to the weapons console. He could still fire. He could destroy the Meridian and everyone on it. Maybe. Or maybe the ship would simply erase his weapons again. Make his fleet forget how to fight. But that was not why his hand stopped. His hand stopped because he no longer wanted to destroy. For the first time in his 800 years of life, he wanted to understand. He opened a channel to the Meridian. "Captain Vance," he said. His voice was rough, broken. "I wish to speak with you. I wish to learn what you know." There was a pause. Then Vance's voice, warm and welcoming. "Come aboard, Dominar. We have been waiting for you." The next days were strange ones. The Vreth fleet did not attack. The Dominar boarded the Meridian and did not come out. Rumors spread that he had been killed, or captured, or transformed into something inhuman. The truth was simpler. He was sitting in a garden that should not exist, listening to children sing songs he did not understand, and asking questions for the first time in centuries. Other ships followed. Keleth scientists who wanted to understand the probability engines. Thel merchants who realized that what the Meridian offered was more valuable than any trade good. Ascendancy officers who were tired of endless duty and wanted something more. The empires did not change overnight. They had existed too long, grown too rigid. Some rejected what the Meridian showed them. They called it a trick, a weapon, a manipulation. They retreated to their old ways and tried to forget what they had seen. But others remembered. Others began to ask questions. Others started looking for a different path. Ambassador Yuan stood with Captain Vance on the hull of the Meridian. They looked out at the stars, at the vast galaxy that had existed for billions of years before them and would exist for billions more after. What happens now? She asked. Vance smiled. Now we wait. We teach those who want to learn. We answer questions from those who ask. And slowly, generation by generation, things change. It will take a long time. Yes, the deep is patient. It taught us to be patient too. Yuan thought about her species, humanity, the youngest race in a galaxy of ancient powers. They had spent centuries trying to prove themselves, to earn respect, to be treated as equals. Now they had returned with something none of the empires possessed. Not a weapon, not technology, something far more dangerous. A mirror, a truth, a choice. We came back to show them themselves, she said, remembering his words. Yes, Vance put a hand on her shoulder. And now they have to decide what to do with what they have seen. We cannot force them to change. We can only show them that change is possible. Yuan looked at the stars. Somewhere out there, the empires were making choices. Some would choose fear. Some would choose growth. The galaxy would never be the same. And humanity, the young species, the primitives, the lucky survivors, stood at the center of it all. Not as conquerors, not as rulers, as teachers, as mirrors, as the ones who had been broken open by the void and put themselves back together as something new. It was. Yuan thought, the most human thing they could have done. She smiled. Then let us wait together, she said, and see what the galaxy becomes. Around them, the Meridian hummed with quiet power. Its passengers sang their ancient songs. And somewhere in the deep, far below reality, something vast and patient smiled. The story was just beginning.